What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show here on Sherdog.com. And today I am looking ahead to the absolutely massive One Championship card. It is the 10th fight night for One Championship, and it is Johnson versus Moraes 3. This is on Amazon Prime in the US and in Canada, and I'm very, very, very excited about this card. I spoke to Chatri Shitchatong last week about it. If you haven't seen that interview, please check it out here on Sherdog.com. And, I kind of said this is the biggest card ever. And he did correct me a little bit now, but it's one of them. It's right up there as one of their biggest cards ever in terms of it being their debut in America. They're obviously in Broomfield, Colorado for this, and that's absolutely huge for them. But the fact that they have Demetrious Johnson, who's one of the greatest fighters of all time, in my opinion, the greatest, in a match that really, really, really matters. You know, they've fought twice before, they're 1-1, and this is a huge fight. Demetrious coming towards, the end of his career. He's talking about it maybe being his last fight. Let's see what happens after that. But it's an absolutely massive one. Then you have the return of Sage Northcutt. You have Stamp Fairtex, who, everyone who listens to this previous shows know I'm massive on Stamp. You have the grappling, you have the Muay Thai and all of that as well. So it's a very interesting One Championship card. I'm going to break down the big MMA fights on this anyway, because there are a lot of MMA fights in this. Before we get into that, just a quick touch on some of the other martial arts that are featured. Rodtang is on this card as well. He is up against Edgar Tabares for the 135-pound Muay Thai championship. I'm sure like me and a lot of other people who are just kind of fans of MMA and maybe don't pay a lot of attention to the kickboxing. I won't get into this for the kickboxing fans, because I know, what are you talking about, Sean? What do you know about kickboxing? And they'd be dead right. But watching his fight against Demetrious Johnson and watching the subsequent fights after that, after kind of getting to know him around that, even though he is one of the guys I kind of did know a little bit before, but he is nothing but exciting. He is one of those guys who kind of, if you're, let's say a boxer or even an MMA fighter, two boxing fans or MMA fans, he brings you in. When that guy's fighting, you're watching. Say, even if you aren't a big boxing fan back in the day, you're probably watching Mayweather, or like myself, watching someone like a Ricky Hatton or something like that. Or, if you aren't a big MMA fan, you probably you tuned in for a McGregor fight, or you tuned in for a John Jones fight, or an Anderson Silva fight. Like Rodtang, in terms of, or even maybe a cowboy fight or a Gaethje fight, maybe is more appropriate here because of the levels of excitement they bring. And I think Rodtang is like that as well. When I see that name down, I'm like, okay, I'm watching that, so that should definitely be fun. And another guy who's very interesting to watch is Mikey Musumeci. He's taking on Osama Al-Mawari. And now, people, the grappling folk will be able to break down this a lot better than me, I'm sure. But watching Mikey, I think he's just very, very, very engaging as a competitor. The way he kind of pulls guard, and he has this very I've come up with this phrase myself, like a nappy guard. He kind of opens up his legs and he's like a baby getting their nappy changed, but it's brilliant. He does it really, really, really well. And I actually love seeing him. I saw someone suggesting, I think even he has suggested, and Demetrious suggested, that they could have a grappling match sometime, and I think that'd be absolutely unbelievable to see. So I'm looking forward to seeing Mikey. For MMA fans as well, Rene the Ritter is on this card, and he is grappling against Tai Riacholo. Obviously, Tai and his brother are Kate, I believe it is, isn't it? Jeez, I'm becoming a grappling expert here, but they are probably, with Mikey, the two /3 premier grapplers in One Championship at the moment, and some of the best in the world as well. So that's very interesting. I think Tai is a good bit smaller than Rene, who has fought up in the weights, and this I think is going to be at 205 pounds. So a very interesting one. Like Rene the Ritter, he comes from the Netherlands, and I say this during all my previews for him. You probably expect a kickboxer, but he can grapple, and he is probably a better grappler so that'll be interesting. See if the Ritter maybe can get top control, use maybe his athleticism to kind of stay on top and get out through the 12 minutes in that one. I'm interested to see that. There's a Muay Thai fight on the undercard as well. Jackie Buntan against DeAndre Martin, and the rest I suppose, is mixed martial arts. I'm going to start at the very top, and I want to talk about Demetrious Johnson versus Adriano Moraes 3. Look, I think the first two fights are very interesting to look at them. And let's look at the timing first of all before we look at anything else, I suppose. Demetrious came into one championship and he had 3 matchups there before he fought Adriano Moraes. And I asked the question to Chatri about it. And I kind of said, like, what was it, the transition over to one championship, and he got caught with the grounded knee? Was that the issue? And he kind of disagreed, and he made a couple of good points. I do think, but I feel like sometimes you come into an organization, and Yuya Wakamatsu is a very good fighter, and the other 2 guys he fought as well are good as well, but he kind of had those fights his own way for a good share of man, and it didn't get into like necessarily a terrible position like he did against Moraes. But I think that Moraes fight, he did get into that terrible position and he ended up suffering in it because he could not prepare throughout his whole career for that. He fought under different rules. And just to say again, I asked Chatri about it as well. That rule set is in place for this fight as well. Now, having said that, I think for the second Adriano Moraes fight, I think he was more, not necessarily, I was going to say clued up on it, but I think more used to it maybe. Like, he's been in one championship now for how long? 4 years? So, and that Adriano Moraes happened, 2.5 years ago? Just almost exactly 2 years ago, in fact. So, he has had time. There's no smarter guy at preparing in the history of mixed martial arts than Demetrious Johnson, maybe with the exception of GSP, or maybe up there alongside him and John Jones as well, I would say. But I think that is a gap that will have been, I think it was fixed for the last fight, and I think it won't be a factor at all in this fight. Now, that's not to say he couldn't win or get knocked out by a grounded knee or anything like that, but I don't think it'll be as unexpected as it was in the first fight. Now, I hope that's not me sound like I'm taking anything away from Adriano Moraes or anything like that, because I absolutely am not. He was winning large portions of that fight. He was winning large portions of the second fight before it ended in round 4, and he showed that himself and Demetrious, they're 1-1 in fights, and they're 1-1 in terms of the fight itself. If we forget about the finishes, very, very close, very, very close. And this, you know what? And just to look at the Adriano Moraes side of it as well. Now, Demetrious fought Adriano around this time, 2001. Then he fought 11 months later against Rodtang in that fight. I just mentioned the custom rules matchup, and then 5 months later against Moraes, and now we have another 9 months just between this. Now, for Moraes, it's been a little bit different. He fought Demetrious, obviously, in 2021. He had 11. Well, it wasn't too different, I suppose. But when you come out the winner of that and you don't fight for 11 months, and he fought Yuya Wakamatsu, and then he had, obviously, the 5 month gap. So when I say it's different, it's literally the exact same. But when Adriano Moraes came out of that, I remember they were talking about they had a bit of a battle over maybe the contract or something like that, if he would even be in one championship, and I think they got it all sorted around then. I think they're all good now. But Demetrious was kind of more like, okay, I'm going to do something fun. Am I going to retire? Am I going to, kind of keep going? It was a different sort of mindset. And I wonder if that played into the rematch after a little bit, that he was entering it like, right, I'm back now, I'm settled, and then you take a loss. Like, what? And not even that it played into the loss, but what mindset will it play into after the loss? Like, there was kind of a bad mindset. Okay, I'm going to fight Yuya Wakamatsu. Won that. Okay, right, we're back. We're fighting Demetrious, and let's go on to the future. And then Demetrious beats you. Like, what part does that play? Whereas Demetrious' mindset, even though he had the fight around the same time against Rodtang, that was all positive. It was a fun fight. It was something different to do. You didn't have to prepare for a total MMA fight, a bit of an MMA fight, as you know. And he won, and it was brilliant, and everyone loved it. I don't think many people came out with a negativity from that. And then he won the next fight against Moraes, coming back to mixed martial arts. So it's nothing but positives for him. And now he's thinking, like, okay, if I win this one, I'll sail off into the sunset. I think that mentality difference is very interesting to me. It's a thing I've actually, throughout my career, let's say it, as someone covering MMA and talking about it, I've really tried to avoid looking at the mentality or talking about it, because we simply don't know. Like, Demetrious Johnson could have had a terrible camp, and Moraes could have had a great camp. Moraes could have had a terrible camp. Demetrious Johnson, could have had a great camp. We simply don't know. But we also don't know the tactics, right? We also don't know, if they're going to make weight. We don't know a lot of things. But that's what I do here. I'm doing a bit of speculation, I suppose, about it. And I think I've changed my mindset on that. I think we do need to speculate a little bit about the mindset and see how maybe it can affect people coming in. Like Leon Edwards, I think, is the big one. His third fight, I always get that mixed up, against Kamaru Usman. I think the mindset on that fight was so much different because of how the second fight went, obviously, where he knocked him spark out in the fourth round. He was a completely different fighter. He believed he could win, and that belief you have is absolutely huge. Now, I'm not saying that Demetrious or Moraes won't have belief or will totally believe going into this fight. I just wonder how it actually will play out. I'm very, very interested in that. Now, for the fight itself, I actually I wonder how it will go. I really do wonder how it will go. Like, Demetrious was doing a kind of a better job, I think, in the second round of just getting to Moraes, whether it was being quick and coming inside and, say, hitting him to the body, or whether it was kind of just waiting on the outside and hitting from the outside and moving away, not giving him those big chances. It's funny, speaking to Chatri again the other day, he spoke about Demetrious Johnson being a finisher, and he spoke about the judging criterion, about how one championship doing. Now, I don't necessarily agree with his call on the judging criteria from the 10-point must system, but he's talking about the judging criteria of this fight as a whole system. He's not actually that wrong, because, let's say you're someone like Demetrious Johnson, right? And you're a lot shorter than Adriano Moraes, but you're also kind of faster, maybe a better technical fighter. I think, look, there's no better technical fighter in the history of the sport, so that's not saying anything bad about Moraes. But let's say you want to just, okay, right, I'm going to throw a few jabs to the body, get out. I'm going to throw a few kicks to the leg, circle away, and that's the way I'm going to fight. When the fight is scored as a whole, you can do that for 25 minutes or 24 and a half minutes, and you get caught by one big shot, and it's all over. Right? And not even all over knocked out. It's all over you get hit, and he has landed the biggest damage, and he wins the fight. Whereas if that happened in the UFC Bellator 10-point must system, he'd win the round, and he'd lose 4 rounds to 1, you get me? So I actually do think in that system, for the way the lower weight classes especially, I think they have to actually fight more towards the finish or towards damage than in the 10-point must system. Although in the 10-point must system you have to also, but I don't think it's as obvious to the people. I don't think it's actually explained as well. Like, the one championship one is probably a little bit more complicated in its totality, but in what I always try to say about the criteria is we're judging the fight if we can't get a finish. So we judge it closest to how the finish would have come, if you want to put it that way. The most amount of damage. That's very simply put. But in one championship, I think they understand that more. I really think they understand that more. And we saw, look, the 2 fights into both in knockouts via knee. So Demetrious almost cannot do the best case scenario game plan for himself. I actually don't think he can do it, right? Unless the best case scenario for him is wrestling, which I don't necessarily think it actually is in this one. So I think adding in a bit of wrestling, adding in a bit of variation, doing something different. But these fights have been so high level, both of them. I think there will be a lot different. It's almost one of those ones where you need to do a preview rather than a review of it in terms of the the analysis, because I think it's going to be different. The second fight was different to the first fight, and I think the third fight will be different to the first and second. But you know what? I'm massively looking forward to it. I just hope they both produce 100%. Because if they do that, we're going to have a fantastic fight. Like, Demetrious at this stage of his career, it must be so hard to produce that level. It must be insane. because the level he hit, no one has ever hit before. And I truly mean that. No one has come close to hitting it, I don't think. Take Khabib, take John Jones, take GSP. Demetrious Johnson at his best. You can talk about anything else you wanted, but he's inside the cage, ability-wise. No one touches Demetrious. If you want to talk GOAT, you want to talk wins, want to talk about legacy, you want to talk about competition and all that, fair play. Let's take that to another side. But in terms of ability, Demetrious was the best. And it must be so hard to try to replicate that. Now, he's done a good job. But, you know, at this stage of his career, let me just check here what age he is. 37 this year, 36 still at the moment. Massive tax against a brilliant fighter. Let's move on and let's talk about a couple of the other fights on the card. I'm going to just talk about Stamp Fairtex against Alyse Anderson. Obviously, Stamp, you know, anyone who listens to these videos knows that Stamp is a favourite of mine. I think she's hilarious in the walkouts and stuff, and I think she's a very good fighter and improving. Now, in her last couple, that's been a bit interesting. She was supposed to have a custom rules fight against Anissa Meksen there at the start of the year. Didn't end up happening. She had a kickboxing match instead. She won that. Didn't look amazing in that. You know, she fought Angela Lee at the start of 2022, and then she had a fight against Jean Razuin in September 2022. And you know what? I didn't think she looked amazing in that either. But her fight's coming up to an Angela Lee fight, and just her all-around ability is very, very, very good. So I'm looking forward to seeing her back here. I think she should be able to put on a show here. So watch a bit of Alyse Anderson, and you know, a couple of her fights, I've just seen here her nickname is Little Savage, and that is an appropriate nickname because that's exactly what she is. Her fight against Asha Roka, she almost got knocked out multiple times in that, and I'm looking at the time here, 2:04 of round 1 she won. So she caught her in a triangle. You know, she refused to give up. She refused to be done, and she ended up winning that fight. So look, we've seen before Stamp has been choked out by Angela Lee, and her previous loss to that was also a submission loss. So Alyse Anderson on the ground is going to be very, very dangerous for her, I think. Now, you know, she's won a couple of fights by triangle choke over in Invicta and things like that as well. I was watching her last fight, or her fight against Hirata, and they were talking about her being a striker, and her striking is good, but I think she's most dangerous and will be most dangerous in this fight against Stamp on the ground. Now, having said that, Stamp's head doesn't seem to always be in the game. If it is in the game, I think she has the ability. I think she has the greater ability here, and I think she will win on the feet. But if it's not, I think Anderson absolutely has the ability to do her harm. Like, she has, she's very confident in her striking. I wouldn't say she's the best technical striker in the world. She's a little bit open through the middle. I think that Stamp jab, if she throws it out there, will be able to land all night. But if Stamp isn't on it, like she hasn't been recently, I think she could lose this fight. Now, I'm picking Stamp here. I think she will win. Also, I'll give my picks throughout it, but I always forget. But I think it's a potential danger matchup for her. I'm looking forward when the betting odds come out for this, talking about it on the betting show later in the week. Demetrious, I'm going for as well in the main event. Don't give out to me for not giving my picks. I always forget. To me, the fight of the night potential here is Roberto Soldic and Zebaztian Kadestam. What a great fight this is. I also spoke to Roberto Soldic 2 weeks ago. If you haven't seen it, just keep scrolling down here on YouTube. You'll find it. It's here on the Sherdog YouTube. And I asked him maybe the stupidest question I've ever asked. Like, are you going to go for a takedown in this fight? Because I think if he wanted to, he could. I think Zebaztian is very open for takedowns. We've seen it in a couple of his recent fights. The fight against, look, Ramazanov takes everyone down, but he had an issue in that fight. And even the Lapicus fight, which he won in 57 seconds, he got taken down in that one as well. And we've seen Soldic, he's been training with Gleison Tibau over in Germany. And I'm sure that wrestling has improved, but it's a big... We forget about wrestling. I want to speak about wrestling again with this fight, because this is going to be a war on the feet. It's not going to be a wrestling match. It's a big fight for Soldic because he came in as that big name, big signer for one championship, and look, it ended with the accidental grind strike against Ramazanov. I spoke to him and Chatri about that fight, about doing the rematch, and look, I think that rematch is probably going to happen after this fight. So this is absolutely massive for him to get that win there, and then move on towards the title picture. If you don't know Roberto Soldic, he is one of the best fighters in the world. That left hook he throws is, up there with McGregor in terms of power. Kicks to the body, his liver kicks. He is unbelievable. He's just really good on the feet. And I saw someone the other day talking, who has he ever beat? Well, he's beaten Demetrious du Plessis. He's beaten Mehmet Khalidov. He's beaten Patrick Klinik. He's beaten Michael Materla. Boris Manikovsky. He's beaten Lewis Long, who's been around for a long, long time. He's fought, he lost a split decision to Yaroslav Amosov. Now, that was 7 years ago, but still, he was in there fighting the best of the best since the very start of his career, when Amosov was 16-0 at the time, and it was only in his, 7th fight. Crazy. So, Roberto Soldic, make no mistake about it, just because he doesn't have the UFC gloves on, he is one of the best fighters on planet Earth right now. He's won 7 fights in a row. He's won, Let me just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He's won 14 of his last 15. The only loss is to Demetrious du Plessis, and he knocked him out in the next fight. That's how good Roberto Soldic is. Now, Kadestam is an absolute hitter as well. These lads are going to try to box the head off each other. Believe me on that. They're absolutely just going to try to box the head off each other in a technical, beautiful way. I've yet to see someone with 14 out of 50. I've yet to see someone go into a fight like that with Roberto Soldic and win. I don't think Kadestam is going to wrestle him. Now, maybe he will. Maybe I'm wrong. But in his past fights, I think he's had an issue defensively wrestling. Is he going to produce? And he has done a bit of offensive wrestling before. Don't get me wrong. But is he going to be able to produce that against Soldic, who has seemingly closed that hole? I'd be skeptical. I'm picking Soldic in that one. I think it's going to be a barn burner. I think someone's getting knocked out in the first 2 rounds. After that, then, Sage Northcutt is back. Actually, before I talk about Sage, just quickly, Aung, he's fighting Rong Fan, who is 19-3 in his career now, 29 years of age. He fought Big Dash last time and ended up losing that, but he has a few wins in one championship, lost to Rene de Ridder as well. And Aung, I always screw up his name. He had a great win last time out, actually 2 wins in a row now. He beat Yushin Okami and Gilberto Galvao as well. So if he gets in another run there, he's a 1 championship favourite, so I could see them putting him right back in there into contention there. So that's a very, very interesting one as well, as is the Kairat Akhmetov against Reece Mclaren. Reece has been around for a long, long time now, and he's another guy who you see he's fighting, and you want to tune in. Won his last 2 in a row. The YZ fight was a very, very good win, a very good rear naked choke, in that one. It was on the verge of a title shot, lost to Yakamatsu just before that. They've been obviously due to fight a few times, but he's always there or thereabouts. If he can turn 2 wins into 3 wins in a row, it could be the next level for him. But his opponent is a very, very good one. He has won 5 fights in a row now. It's obviously the rematch. He won the unanimous decision the last time out against Mclaren, and I think he'll be able to looking to do something similar again. Obviously, he's a lot of submission wins. 13 submission wins in his career, and he'll be looking to get another one of them there here. So I'm looking forward to that as well. The 2 fights left, the 2 MMA fights left, Lowen Tynanes and Ray Young-ok, and then Sage Northcutt. I'll leave Sage to last year. I'll just my picks in those one as well. I'll go for Akhmetov to win that one. I will go for Aung as well to win the fight before that, and I'm definitely picking Soldic. So Lowen Tynanes against Ray Young-ok. This fight was only kind of added last minute, and I see it's opening the card now. I think they want to open this card with an absolute bang, because this is you could say this is the best fight in the card nearly. This is a brilliant fight. Obviously, come back in a year last time out for Oak. He ended up on the wrong side of that against Christian Lee. Obviously, I spoke to Chattery about the Lee family. It looks like there is going to be an interim belt for Angela Lee's title. It looks like there's going to be that way for Christian Lee. That's not confirmed now yet. So this is a massive fight, I suppose, to decide who will be in that fight, because Oak had obviously the belt before that. He had beat Christian Lee and lost the rematch. beat Eddie Alvarez, Gufarov, and all those as well. And for Lowen Tynanes, 11-1 now. He had lost to Gufarov in 2020 and didn't fight again until the end of 2022, which it's 5 months ago now. It only seems like yesterday, because I remember talking about that fight, and it wasn't his best performance ever in that fight, I suppose, but he has the ability to win fights. He's a wrestler, immediately goes for takedowns. He had this disease that kind of changed his style of movement and things, moves around a lot on the feet. He throws some kicks, but his striking isn't the best. Looked a little bit better last time, but still he wants to wrestle all the time. Strong in the clinch, strong on the ground. Lovely short elbows in the ground as well. Lots of chokes, great at controlling, and strength is what he is good at. Now, Oak, on the other side of it as well, he can fight all around. He's loose on the feet, throws flying knees, a very good jab when he throws it. Just, what the issue with him is sometimes, and this was the issue in both fights, I think, against Christian Lee. I think he won the first fight against Christian Lee as well, just to add that in there. Sometimes he doesn't throw enough. He bites his time too much. He banks in his cardio a little bit too much. You cannot do that against Lowen Tynanes. You absolutely cannot do that, because if you do that against him, he's just going to take you down. And he's just going to hold you down, hold you down, and hold you down. Now, it's a very interesting fight, because how much has Lowen improved from that comeback fight, and what is going to be the mental state of Oak coming into this one? I don't know. This is a toss-up for me. Do you know what? I'm going to go for Lowen Tynanes based on Oak's inability to throw lots of shots, because he's going to need to do it. You're going to have to jab your way out of the cage here in this one to win against Tynanes, and if he's bad at that, it's going to be a bad night for you, because Tynanes is going to take you down and take you down and take you down. So I'm going for Lowen Tynanes in that one. But if Oak can be confident in his strikes, big difference in that fight. Then we have the Sage Northcutt fight. And what a whirlwind career it's been for Sage. Like we spoke about Tynanes there being out. With Sage as well, it just seems like it's been injury after injury for him, that the poor guy. And I know a lot of people they don't like Sage or something, or it's because he was kind of the chosen one, I suppose, in the UFC, and it didn't work out for him when it seemed like he had everything going for him. But maybe it's because I kind of cover the local guys here and like to watch him on the way up as well. I was kind of rooting for Sage to be a great fighter, and it's very unfortunate, I suppose, what has happened to him. He was with, obviously in the UFC, he was on a 3-fight win streak. People seem to forget that before he went to one championship. They put him in there with Cosmo Alexandra, which was that's some matchmaking there. They weren't, in fairness to one championship, they don't give easy matchmaking to the new guys coming in. Sage lost. Demetrious, okay, a few fights in, lost. Eddie Alvarez lost. Look at Soldic last fight. He had a very tough fight against Ramazanov, and has another very tough one here, so I give him credit for that. But it was very tough matchmaking. He was supposed to come back in 2021 against Shinya Aoki. It didn't happen. And now he's back 4 years later to fight Ahmed Mujtaba. And I'm very interested to see how Sage looks, how he can look. 4 years out of the cage is just, it seems like an impossible task. And Mujtaba is a very good fighter as well to come back against. He throws straight down the middle with big power. He has KO'd lads in a couple of seconds. Not the best defensive striker in the world, I suppose. He's an okay jab, but the wrestling is what he wants to do first. Head pressure, he's calm. He's kind of a slow pace on the ground, but it's very good at it. He's lovely trips as well. So it's going to be one of those fights, I think, where Page is trying to keep Ahmed off of him. And if he can, Ahmed can still cause him problems on the feet. It's going to be a tough fight. Now, Sage, an athletic phenom. If he still has that athletic ability, if he can still throw those big, massive strikes that he threw, and if he has improved wrestling, and if he has improved jiu-jitsu and all, he can win this fight. But has he? Does he still have all that ability? Has he been able to train in between the injuries? What has he been doing? Because the game can pass you by very, 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 very quickly. And Sage Northcutt quickly went from a guy who was 19, 20 years of age to a guy now who's 27 in a click of the fingers overnight. And I really hope he fights well. Look, I don't care who wins or loses here. Both guys are very good fighters, but I hope he comes back, and I hope he gives a good account of himself, because I just feel for guys like that, like him, like Lowen, say like to Dominic Cruz, and lots of other people. It's very sad when careers get badly derailed like that, and I wish the best for Sage. My pick is going to be Ahmed here. And it's an interesting fight, very interesting. Right, I will leave it there, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and a like. I'll leave it there. My name is Sean Sheehan for Sherdog.com, and I'll see you all next time.